Listen well, my children, and draw closer, for this is a story the wind still whispers to the trees. Long ago, in a valley wrapped by green hills and red dust roads, there lived a girl named Amara. She was not born with silver or gold, but with a gentle heart that noticed pain quickly. Her mother died when Amara was still learning how to braid hair. Her father followed soon after, carried away by a fever that burned like dry harmattan fire. After that, the world grew colder for the girl. She was taken into the house of her father's elder sister, Aunt Sabina, a woman whose smile never reached her eyes. To the village, Sabina pretended kindness, but inside the walls of her home, her voice was sharp and her hands were heavy. Amara slept on a mat near the kitchen and woke before the cock crowed. She fetched water, swept the compound, and cooked meals she was often not allowed to eat. Yet through all this, Amara never lost her calm. What people noticed most was her hair. It was thick, dark, and long, falling like a river down her back. Elders said such hair was rare. Some whispered it carried blessing. Others said beauty invites trouble. Amara only tied it neatly and kept quiet, unaware that this very hair would soon pull her into shame, pain, and a destiny no one expected. As seasons passed, Amara grew taller and her hair grew heavier. Wherever she went, eyes followed. Women touched it with envy. Children asked if it hurt her neck. Men praised it carelessly, and that praise poured poison into Aunt Sabina's heart. Sabina had a daughter, Lolo, whose hair was thin and broke easily. No oil made it shine, no style made it long. Each time villagers praised Amara, Sabina felt a stone press harder against her chest. At night, she muttered that Amara was using charms. During the day, she found small reasons to beat her. "Lift your head to high again," she would say, "and I will cut that pride from you." Amara never answered. She only lowered her eyes. But what Amara did not know was that the village was suffering quietly. The stream that fed their farms had begun to dry. Crops failed. Children grew thin. Elders met often, shaking their heads. Sacrifices were made, but nothing changed. Then an old diviner spoke. He said the village's survival rested on something already among them, something pure, something harmed unjustly. His words moved like smoke, unclear but heavy. Some villagers remembered Amara's hair and the rumors around it. Whispers began. Sabina heard them and smiled a bitter smile. If the village wanted something from Amara, she would give it, but in a way that would break the girl forever. The market square was called early one morning. Drums beat, but not in joy. Villagers gathered with tired faces and restless feet. Amara stood behind Aunt Sabina, confused and frightened. The chief cleared his throat and spoke of hunger, of failing land, of desperate times. Then the diviner stepped forward and repeated his words. "What will save us has been mistreated," he said. "It carries life and blessing." Murmurs rose like angry bees. Before Amara could understand, Aunt Sabina pushed her forward. "It is her," she shouted. "This girl brings strange attention. Even her hair is not normal," the crowd gasped. Some protested, but fear is louder than kindness when hunger is near. Sabina accused Amara of pride and hidden powers. The diviner hesitated, but the crowd demanded action. "Cut it," someone shouted. "Let us see if she is truly innocent." Amara's knees shook. She begged softly, her voice lost in the noise. Sabina grabbed a blade used for slaughtering goats. Right there, in the open square, hands held Amara still. Her hair was pulled, and the blade moved. Thick strands fell to the ground. Each cut felt like a scream tearing from her heart. People watched. Some laughed. Some looked away. When it was done, Amara stood shaking, her head uneven and bare. Shame burned hotter than fire. Sabina smiled, believing she had finally destroyed the girl. That night, Amara did not sleep. She sat outside the hut, touching her rough head, feeling empty where her hair once rested. The moon watched quietly. She remembered her mother's voice, long ago, telling her, "What is taken unjustly will cry out to the earth." Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks and sank into the soil. Far away, the wind shifted. In the village, nothing changed at first. The stream stayed low. Hunger remained. People began to whisper again, but now with doubt. Had they made a mistake? Sabina noticed this and grew angry. She blamed Amara for everything. "Even without hair, you are still a curse," she said. One evening, she pushed Amara out and locked the door. "Do not return," she spat. "Alone, Hungry and ashamed, Amara walked toward the old forest at the edge of the village. Elders warned children never to go there, saying spirits lived among the tall trees. With no home left, Amara entered anyway. She walked until her legs failed and collapsed near an ancient tree with roots like coiled snakes. There, she slept. As dawn approached, the ground beneath her began to warm. A soft light spread. From the soil where her hair had been buried earlier that day, something began to stir, unseen by human eyes, but awake to injustice. When Amara woke, she was not alone. An old woman sat beside her, skin wrinkled like dried leaves, eyes clear as fresh water. "Why do you cry, child of pain?" the woman asked. Amara told her everything: the loss of her parents, Sabina's cruelty, the public shame, the cutting of her hair. The old woman listened without interrupting. When Amara finished, the woman nodded slowly. "Your hair was not ordinary," she said. "It was tied to the life of this land." Amara trembled. "I did not know," she whispered. The woman smiled gently. "Blessings often rest on the humble," she replied. She told Amara that her tears had awakened the spirit of the forest. "What was cut will grow again," she said, "but not only on your head." She led Amara deeper into the forest to a hidden clearing. There, from the ground, dark strands like roots had begun to rise, spreading across dry soil. Where they touched, green shoots appeared. Water trickled from cracked earth. "Your suffering has called healing," the woman said. "But justice must come first." She warned Amara not to return to the village yet. "Let them see what they have done," she said. As the sun rose, the old woman faded like mist. Amara stood alone again, but this time, hope sat beside her fear. Back in the village, strange things began to happen. The stream that had almost dried overnight began to flow stronger. Farms near the forest edge grew green first. People were confused and afraid. Elders met again, arguing loudly. Some remembered the day Amara was shamed. Guilt crept into their voices. Aunt Sabina, however, grew uneasy for another reason. She dreamed every night of hair wrapping around her legs, pulling her down. Lolo fell sick, coughing and weak. Sabina went to the diviner, demanding answers. He shook his head. "What was cut in anger now grows in truth," he said. "Bring the girl back." Sabina refused at first, but fear pushed her feet. She went to the forest, calling Amra's name. Amara watched from behind trees, her heart pounding. She remembered the old woman's words and stayed silent. As days passed, the forest spread green life outward. The village flourished, but uneasily, like stolen wealth. People realized the blessing came from the forest, not from their actions. Shame replaced hunger. One by one, villagers walked to the forest edge, calling Amra's name, asking forgiveness. She listened but did not answer. Justice, like healing, needed its own time. The land waited. The people waited. And Aunt Sabina's dreams grew darker. On the 7th morning, the chief himself came to the forest with elders behind him. He walked slowly, his staff heavy in his hand. "Amara," he called, voice trembling. "If you hear me, come out. The village has sinned." Amara stepped forward, her head still bare, but her eyes steady. Gasps filled the air. The chief bowed low, something no one had ever seen him do. He spoke of fear, of wrong judgment, of shame that would stain the village forever if left uncleaned. "Tell us what to do," he begged. Amara remembered every slap, every insult, every laugh from the crowd. Anger rose but did not control her. "Justice," she said softly, "must be public, as my shame was." Murmurs spread. She demanded that the truth be spoken openly, and that those who harmed her face the same eyes that watched her fall. The elders agreed. That evening, drums beat again, but this time in warning. The village gathered once more in the square. Amara stood beside the chief. Aunt Sabina was dragged forward, shaking. The diviner spoke the truth of the hair and the land. The crowd turned on Sabina. She fell to her knees, crying, confessing envy and cruelty. Amara watched, her heart heavy but clear. "Let her live," Amara said, "but let her carry the weight of what she did." The crowd agreed. Shame changed sides that day. After the confession, rain fell for the first time in many moons. It soaked the ground, washing dust and tears together. Crops grew fast. The forest receded gently, leaving rich soil behind. Amara was offered gifts, land, and honor. She accepted none at first. She only asked for a small hut near the stream and peace. Her hair began to grow again, slowly, thick and dark as before. Children followed her, listening when she spoke. Women sought her counsel. Men respected her silence. Aunt Sabina lived, but no one trusted her words again. She worked alone, carrying shame like a shadow. Lolo recovered but never mocked another again. As seasons passed, the village healed. Elders told the story often, reminding people that fear can turn neighbors into enemies. Amara became known not for her hair, but for her wisdom. She taught that blessings do not shout. They endure quietly until tested. And so, my children, remember this when envy burns your chest or fear clouds your judgment. What you destroy in anger may be the very thing holding your future together. The earth remembers injustice, and it always answers in its own time. Peace returned, but peace always carries memory behind it. Even as crops grew tall and laughter returned to the market, the village did not forget how close it came to destruction. At night, elders sat by the fire and spoke quietly. They wondered how fear had blinded them so easily. Amara lived near the stream, rising early, helping children learn to read signs in nature. Her hair continued to grow, but she kept it wrapped, humble as before. Some villagers still avoided her eyes, not from anger, but from guilt. They remembered the day they watched her shame without stopping it. One evening, the old diviner came to Amara's hut. His back was bent deeper now. He told her the spirits were restless. The land is healed, he said, but hearts heal slower. He warned that unfinished shame can turn into quiet poison. Amara listened carefully. She knew forgiveness spoken too quickly can rot inside. The diviner advised a final cleansing ceremony, not for the land, but for the people. Amara agreed, though her chest tightened. She knew such a gathering would reopen wounds. That night, she dreamed of her hair stretching across the village, not choking anyone, but tying them together. When she woke, she understood. Healing was not finished. It had only changed shape. Word spread that another gathering would be held. This time, there was no fear of hunger driving the crowd. There was fear of memory. People arrived quietly, without drums. Amara stood before them, her voice calm. She did not accuse. She did not praise. She asked each family to speak of what they felt on the day her hair was cut. Silence fell first. Then one woman cried and confessed she laughed to hide her fear. A man admitted he held Amara's arm because others told him to. A mother said she turned her child's face away, knowing it was wrong. Each confession peeled a layer of shame from the air. When it was Sabina's turn, she collapsed. Her voice broke as she spoke of envy growing slowly until it ruled her. She begged Amara for forgiveness publicly. Amara stepped forward and lifted her. "I forgive you," she said, "but forgiveness does not erase truth." Sabina nodded, accepting this weight. When the confessions ended, Amara cut a small lock of her regrown hair herself and buried it in the square. "Let this remind us," she said, "that what we harm unjustly harms us in return." The wind moved gently, as if listening. After the ceremony, something shifted inside the village. People greeted one another more carefully. Children were corrected gently. Elders judged more slowly. The story of Amara's hair became a lesson taught to the young, not as gossip, but as warning. Amara herself did not stay in one place. She traveled between nearby villages, helping settle disputes, teaching patience. Wherever she went, crops seemed stronger, water clearer. Some called her blessed. Others feared her power. She corrected both. "I carry no magic," she said. "Only memory and truth." One dry season, a neighboring village sent messengers. They were suffering as Amara's village once did. They begged her to come. She agreed, but warned them. "If you seek quick rescue, I will disappoint you," she said. "If you seek justice, I will stay." When she arrived, she saw familiar signs: envy, silence, quiet cruelty. She told her story openly. Some listened, others scoffed. One man laughed and said no hair could save land. Amara looked at him calmly. "It was never the hair," she replied. That night, the wind rose strong, shaking roofs. By morning, the villagers were ready to listen. Stories travel faster than storms, and truth settles deeper than rain. Years passed like flowing water. Amara grew into a woman whose presence softened hard hearts. Her hair was long again, but she never let it define her. Aunt Sabina aged quickly, working quietly, teaching kindness through her silence. Lolo married and raised children with gentler hands. The village prospered, not just in food, but in fairness. Travelers came often, asking about the girl whose shame saved a land. Elders always ended the tale the same way. The blessing did not come from her hair alone, they said. It came from how she endured. Amara eventually returned to her hut by the stream and lived simply. One evening, the same old woman from the forest appeared again, unchanged by time. She smiled and said, "You have done well." Amara bowed her head. "The people learned," she replied. The woman shook her head gently. "You learned first," she said. As dawn broke, the woman faded. Amara felt no fear, only peace. She knew her work was done. When she later passed quietly in her sleep, the village mourned deeply. That season, the harvest was the richest anyone remembered. Elders said the land was saying thank you. Even now, when the harmattan wind blows through tall grass, old men still tell this story to restless children. They speak slowly, so the lesson sinks deep. They say fear can turn good people cruel, and envy can blind even family. They remind listeners that public shame leaves long shadows, and justice delayed grows roots. Amra's name is spoken with respect, not because she was powerful, but because she chose mercy without forgetting truth. Her hut by the stream still stands, though empty. Children leave flowers there. Women touch their hair thoughtfully when they pass. And when someone suggests harming another to solve a problem, an elder will cough and say, "Remember the girl whose hair you cut," then silence follows. The land remains green. The stream still flows. And so, my children, carry this story carefully. Do not rush to join the crowd when fear speaks loudly. Do not harm what you do not understand. What you cut in anger today may be the root holding tomorrow together. Long after Amra's passing, the village entered a season of testing. Prosperity can soften discipline if not watched carefully. New leaders rose who did not witness the old shame with their own eyes. They enjoyed full barns and steady rain, but spoke less often of restraint. Some laughed at the old warnings, calling them stories for children. One such man was Bako, a trader who grew rich quickly. He mocked elders who advised patience. "The land favors us now," he said. Fear belongs to the past. Slowly, pride crept back into conversations. Small injustices were ignored. When a poor widow's land was taken unfairly, people looked away. The stream still flowed, but not as loudly. Elders felt unease, but struggled to convince the young. One night, a strong wind tore through the village, uprooting weak roofs, but sparing Amra's old hut. People noticed. Whispers returned, quieter this time, edged with denial. Bako dismissed it all. He planned a grand feast to celebrate his wealth, choosing the market square, the same place Amara had once been shamed. Elders warned him. He laughed louder. "The past cannot harm us," he said. But the land listens longer than people remember, and the earth had not forgotten the lesson it once taught. The day of Bako's feast arrived with strange heat. The air felt heavy, as if waiting. Villagers gathered, drawn by food and music. Goats were slaughtered, drums beaten. Bako stood proudly, dressed in fine cloth. As he spoke, boasting of success, the wind stopped suddenly. Silence fell hard. A child pointed toward Amra's old hut. Dark clouds gathered above it alone. Before anyone could speak, a crack split the ground near the square. Water burst forth, flooding unevenly, destroying stalls built without care. People ran, shouting. Bako slipped and fell into the mud, his fine clothes ruined. The elders shouted for calm, but fear had already taken hold. The storm lasted only moments. When it passed, damage lay where greed had grown strongest. Amra's hut remained untouched. The message was clear, though unspoken. That evening, elders called the people together. They reminded them that blessings remain only where justice is guarded. Bako knelt publicly, shaken. He returned stolen land and begged forgiveness. The widow was restored. The village worked together to repair what was broken. That night, elders told Amra's story again. Not softly, but firmly, reminding everyone that memory must be renewed, or it fades into danger. From that day forward, the village changed how it taught its children. Lessons were not left only to stories by firelight. Each year, on the day Amra's hair had been cut, the village gathered, not in sorrow, but in reflection. No drums were played. Instead, silence ruled. Children listened as elders described how easily fear becomes cruelty. They walked to the stream, washing their hands as a sign of clean judgment. Travelers who witnessed the ceremony carried the practice elsewhere. Soon, nearby villages adopted similar days of remembrance. Amra's name traveled far, woven into songs and proverbs. "Do not cut what feeds you," people would say. The land remained generous, but always watchful. Elders aged, new leaders rose, but the ritual held them steady. Even Baco became quieter, teaching patience to younger traders. At times, strangers came seeking miracles. Elders sent them away gently. "This land rewards fairness, not desperation," they said. And so the story settled into the bones of the people. Not as fear, but as guidance. The earth responded in kind. Streams stayed full. Crops resisted drought. The village learned that justice, once awakened, must be fed daily with humility, or it sleeps lightly, ready to wake again. Many years later, when the last elder who remembered Amara as a girl lay dying, he asked the children to come close. His voice was thin, but clear. "Do not turn her story into legend only," he said. "It happened because people failed, then chose better." He warned them not to wait for suffering before correcting injustice. That night, as he passed, the moon shone brightly. The stream sang softly. Some said they saw a figure near Amra's hut, standing quietly, watching. No one chased the vision. They understood. In time, the village became known not for wealth, but for fairness. Disputes were settled calmly. Outsiders noticed the difference. When asked their secret, villagers smiled and spoke of listening to people, to land, to memory. The story of the girl whose hair was cut remained the heart of their teaching. Not as a threat, but as proof that humility heals deeper than power. Children grew, left, returned, carrying the lesson forward. And whenever fear tried to rise again, someone would recall the square, the blade, the silence, and choose another path. That is how a story stays alive, not by being told, but by being obeyed. So now, my children, you know why elders speak slowly when crowds grow loud. You know why we watch carefully when envy smiles too easily. The story of Amara is not about hair, nor spirits alone. It is about what happens when people forget the weight of their actions. Shame placed on the innocent does not disappear. It sinks into the ground and waits. But mercy, when joined with truth, can heal even deep wounds. The village still stands today, strong and quiet. Travelers still stop by the stream. Some feel peace without knowing why. Elders say the land remembers who protected it. When children ask if such things can happen again, the answer is simple. Yes, they are told. If we forget, so carry this story with care. When the crowd pushes you to harm another, step back. When fear demands cruelty, refuse it. What you spare today may save you tomorrow. And what you cut in anger may one day rise from the ground, asking for justice. That is the lesson Amara left behind, rooted not in hair, but in conscience. As generations passed, the village changed in shape, but not in spirit. New houses rose where mud huts once stood, yet the stream still flowed the same path. Children born long after Amra's time still learned her story before they learned numbers. Mothers told it while braiding hair. Fathers repeated it when correcting anger. It became part of daily life, not a distant legend. Once, during a season of trade, strangers argued loudly in the market, pushing blame and threats. The crowd began to gather, excitement rising. An old woman stepped forward and spoke one sentence only. This is how it began before. Her words cut through noise like a blade through cloth. Silence followed. The strangers calmed, ashamed. Disputes were settled without blood. Elders smiled quietly. The lesson still worked. The land responded gently, rewarding restraint. Some said Amra's spirit guarded the village. Others said it was memory doing its work. Either way, fear no longer ruled decisions. Justice was chosen early, before anger could grow strong roots. That was Amra's final gift, not power, but awareness. A village awake to itself is hard to destroy. One year, a terrible drought struck far lands beyond the hills. Refugees came seeking water and shelter. The village opened its arms, though supplies were tested. Some villagers whispered in fear, remembering old hunger. The chief called a gathering. He stood near the stream and spoke clearly. "We survived before because we protected what was right," he said. "We will survive again by sharing." Food was measured carefully. Water was guarded but not withheld. No one was turned away. The drought passed slowly, but the village endured. Other villages noticed and followed their example. When asked why they risked so much, the answer was simple. We learned once what fear can do. The stream never dried. Elders said the land knew the difference between hoarding and wisdom. Children of the refugees later married into the village, strengthening its roots. And so, even in hardship, the lesson held firm. Amara's story lived on, not just in words, but in choices made under pressure. Time softened even the sharpest memories, but it never erased them. The square where Amara was shamed became a place of teaching. No one built stalls there again. Instead, elders gathered children and told them why that ground mattered. They described how quickly laughter can turn cruel and how easily crowds forget mercy. Each child was asked what they would have done. Their answers grew wiser with each generation. Some said they would speak up. Others said they would walk away. Elders nodded. Any choice that refuses cruelty was honored. The village became known as a place where justice was taught early. Visitors came not for trade, but for counsel. Disputes were brought from far away. The elders listened patiently, reminding everyone that solutions born from anger often return with pain. Amara's name was always spoken last, as reminder, not as praise. She was one of us, they said, and so were those who failed her. That balance kept pride away. On a quiet evening many years later, a young girl sat by the stream, braiding her hair slowly. She had been mocked earlier that day for being different. Tears dropped into the water. An elder passed and sat beside her. He did not speak at first. Then he told her a story, not as warning, but as comfort. He spoke of a girl whose hair once carried the fate of many, and how her patience changed everything. The child listened closely. Her crying stopped. "What happened to her?" she asked. The elder smiled softly. "She became the reason this stream still flows," he said. The girl touched her hair with new care. She stood taller. That night, the elder knew the story had done its work again. It had reached another heart at the right time. That is how stories survive, not loudly, but exactly where they are needed. As the years rolled on, the forest near the village remained calm. No strange growth returned, no sudden signs. Balance had been restored. Elders said that when justice becomes habit, the earth no longer needs to shout. People worked, loved, argued, and forgave like any other place, but always with awareness. When tempers rose, someone would breathe and recall the square. When envy whispered, someone would remember Sabina's fall. The village was not perfect, but it was awake. And that made all the difference. Amara's hut finally fell with age, its walls returning to earth. No one rebuilt it. Flowers grew there instead. Travelers still paused, feeling peace without knowing why. The land had accepted the lesson fully. Now I am old, my children, and my voice shakes like dry leaves. Soon, others will tell this story. Some details may change, but the heart must remain. Never believe that shame is harmless. Never think injustice disappears when ignored. And never forget that healing begins when truth is spoken aloud. Amara was not chosen because she was special. She became special because she endured without becoming cruel. That is the hardest path and the strongest one. If you remember nothing else, remember this: the earth listens, even when people do not. So I leave you with this final thought. When crowds demand blood, stand still. When fear asks for sacrifice, ask questions. And when someone is shamed publicly, know that the wound will travel far if left unattended. The story of Amara is finished, but its work is not. Each generation must choose whether to repeat the cut or to protect what sustains them. The land waits. It always does.